Hi, Lori. I hope you're doing well. I made this video for you to go over your medical astrology chart, to look at the day you were born and what the universe has to say. Today, we'll look at your birth chart and see what your medical astrology chart shows about what happened at the time when you were born. And I remember you were telling me that you had the chickenpox right after you were born and that the virus spread to your spinal cord and that you almost died. And a huge congratulations on surviving and making it through. That's a lot of trauma for anyone to go through, especially for a newborn. And by the way, your birth chart shows how much of a strong, resilient, and determined badass you are, my friend. You are truly a miracle baby. And for a reference point, here's a short definition and explanation of what chickenpox is and what we'll be exploring in your chart. Chickenpox is caught from exposure to someone who has the chickenpox and is spread through sneezing, coughing, and then breathing in the virus through the lungs. Chickenpox virus goes from the lungs through the bloodstream to the skin and causes a painful, uncomfortable rash, blistering skin, and it could spread across the body. Severe headache, fever, and other severe complications can also be associated with the chickenpox, as in your case, the virus settled in your spinal cord and was life-threatening. And let's look at your chart and see what the universe has to say. Your birth chart is a blueprint of the exact time, date, and place that you were born, and it shows what signs and houses the planets were in. And basically, the planets are the what, the zodiac signs are the how, and the houses are the where. So it's what, how, and where. And we look at your zodiac sign, house placements, and aspects of the planets to determine which planets are responsible for illness and in what ways. And while we look at your chart, we can determine which parts of the body are affected. We can see your general constitution and level of overall health, your health strengths and weaknesses or challenges. And in a medical astrology chart, we also look at your elements, earth, fire, water, and air, and see any areas that are out of balance and how we can strengthen and support your planets and balance your elements in your chart and in your life by using foods, natural remedies, and activities to balance and support the heart, mind, body, and soul. And here's my disclaimer, just a formality. This medical astrology chart reading is not a medical diagnosis. I am not a doctor, and this is not considered medical treatment. Always consult with your doctor before starting any new herbs, supplements, treatments, or activities. And this reading is for informational purposes only and to explore a holistic perspective of insight into the universe through the planets and stars and provides a bigger picture perspective. Medical astrology takes into consideration that the heart, mind, body, and spirit are all as one and that they cannot be separated as they do not operate individually. And that's it for the formalities, my friend. Let's get started. And we can start with your ascendant and your first house. And this is a very important part of your chart since the ascendant and first house rule the physical body. So its ruler determines a great deal of your physical strengths and weaknesses. And your ascendant or rising sign, the same thing, shows your health at the time of your birth and of your early years in life. And we'll look at the ruler on the cusp of your first house and which zodiac signs are in your first house. And your ascendant is at 23 degrees Scorpio. And Scorpio is ruled by Pluto and Mars, with Sagittarius also in your first house. And the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. When we look at your 12th house, Scorpio is also on your 12th house cusp at 3 degrees. So think of an astrology chart as a complete cycle with its 12 houses. So on the day of your birth, your rising sign marks the beginning of your life. So if you look at the 12th house, that's where you were when you were still in your mother's womb. And when you cross over the ascendant, that's the time that you were born. Your 12th house cusp is at 3 degrees Scorpio, and this represents your pre-birth environment, what you came into this life with. And we won't get too complicated. I just wanted to give you a perspective on how we're looking at your chart. And we look at the conditions just before you were born. So the 12th house is traditionally ruled by Pisces, and Pisces is what's hidden. Pisces is a mystery. And Scorpio is on your 12th house, and Scorpio likes to uncover mysteries and is ruled by Pluto and Mars. And Pisces rules the immune system and viral infections and spinal fluid. And you also have Neptune in your 12th house in Scorpio. So you've got the traditional ruler of Pisces in the 12th and your Neptune planet is also in the 12th. And your first house is traditionally ruled by Aries, which is the ruler of Mars, which Mars is also a ruler of Scorpio. So you have a double Mars in your first house. And Mars is associated with the immune system, traumatic and invasive injuries, and Mars can trigger sudden unexpected injuries or ailments. And Scorpio, ruled by Pluto and Mars. Now, Scorpio rules all fluids in the body, including spinal fluid. And Pluto is a planet of transformation, and Pluto likes to expose mysteries. What I've told you so far sets the tone for what happened when you were born. And just to give you an idea of Scorpio, one astrologer actually referred to Scorpio and Pluto as very intense and to hell and back, transformative in a big way, getting to the core to expose the truth, or an illness in this case. And Pluto can be inflammatory, and Mars, they can both trigger problems. So you have that right up front when you were born. And Mars is fire. So the thing about Pluto and Mars, although they can cause inflammation and cause problems, they both have great healing properties. So Pluto is transformational and great regeneration. And same with Mars. Mars can have quick injuries and then can also be quick to heal. So you have that right up front. And I'm sure that's why you survived. You had a trauma when you were born, but you had the Mars and Pluto help you to keep your body strengthened. And now if we look at the very top of your chart at your midheaven, which is a focal point of your chart and very important part of your medical astrology chart. Your midheaven is 7 degrees Virgo, and you have a lot going on at the top of your chart. You have your moon at 8 degrees Virgo in your 10th house, which is only 1 degree away from your midheaven. In your 10th house, traditional ruler is Capricorn. Capricorn rules the skin and spinal column. And you also have your north node at 23 degrees. So when we think of chickenpox, we're already seeing a picture of skin and spinal column. And Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and your moon is Virgo. Mercury rules the nervous system, the lungs and respiratory system, and spinal cord. And Mercury sends the signals through the nervous system. In this case, it sent the signal of the virus through, after it got in the lungs, through the bloodstream and to the spinal cord. And the moon's nodes are associated with health issues. And the moon is also significant in medical astrology, as a lot of ailments are associated with the moon. And in your chart, the moon is at a focal point at the very top of your chart. And it's only 5 degrees away from Pluto, which is squaring your ascendant. So the very top of your chart at your midheaven with all those planets, some of them are squaring your ascendant. And what this means is tension, putting tension and stress or illness at the time of your birth. And Pluto is represented here in Virgo, but it's also in your first house and your 12th house. So if we look at some of those planets at the top of your chart squaring your ascendant at the exact time you were born, it shows the difficulty that you had right when you were born, immediately catching the chickenpox virus. And since chickenpox is contracted from someone else sneezing or coughing and then breathing the virus into your lungs, and Mercury ruling the lungs and spinal cord and carried through your blood, through the Mars Aries, which is right on your ascendant, the natural ruler of the first house. You also have Hygeia at the top of your chart in your 9th house, conjunct Uranus. And Hygeia is an asteroid in medical astrology, and the placement of Hygeia in your chart shows a health issue, and it's conjunct Uranus, and Uranus rules sudden unexpected and also rules nerve signals. So chickenpox was sudden unexpected, and Hygeia is a health issue. So at the time you were born, Uranus added that sudden unexpected element and mystery of Scorpio Pisces of getting the chickenpox virus. And your moon in Virgo at the top of your chart is opposing Chiron in Pisces at the bottom of your chart. The moon in Virgo is the lungs, and Chiron in Pisces is immune system. So it's lungs versus immune system. And Chiron is squaring your ascendant also, which is the tension. So you have the squares from the top of your chart at your midheaven and the bottom of your chart at your IC, both squaring your ascendant at the time of your birth. This is totally mind-blowing how this works. To look at everything that happened at your birth and how it shows right in your chart. And we haven't even looked at your whole chart yet. If we look down at the bottom of your chart, the very bottom of your chart, 7 degrees Pisces at the IC, and you have Chiron in your 3rd house, which is opposing the Pluto and Virgo at the midheaven. And Chiron is the wounded healer, also signifies a health issue, and that's in your 3rd house. The 3rd house traditional ruler is Gemini, ruled by Mercury, and that's the lungs. So it's a health issue with the lungs. And then Pisces is immune system and viruses. And when you have Pluto in opposition, Pluto signifying the health issue in opposition to Chiron, Pluto can be a trigger. And you have a lot going on in your chart. And I don't want to overwhelm you too much. So just know that I welcome any questions. Feel free to ask me and I'll answer them for you. I know this is a lot of information to give at one time. You have Mars in your 4th house in Pisces. And Pisces, immune system, viruses, and spinal fluid. And Mars represented in your 1st house and 12th house. And you have Mars at 25 degrees Pisces in your 4th house, conjunct your South Node, which is only 2 degrees apart at 23 degrees. And those two are in opposition to your North Node in your 10th house. So the 10th house across from the 4th house, 4th house ruler is Cancer. Cancer rules fluids of the body, and Cancer rules the stomach. And one of the symptoms of chickenpox is a stomach ache, and that's related to the moon in your North and South nodes, since Cancer, the ruler of Cancer, is the moon. And it's very common for a health issue to show up or be triggered by the moon's nodes. And you also have your Mars conjunct the South Node and opposite the North Node. And where Mars is, that also can trigger health issue, and it's right next to the node and across from the other one. So the Pisces, viruses, and Mars inflammation, and the blood, opposing your North Node in Virgo. And with all this information that we've talked about, we haven't even mentioned your Sun in Taurus yet. And your Sun is at 15 degrees Taurus in your 6th house. And the 6th house rules health. And traditional ruler of the 6th house is Virgo. And you also have Mercury and Venus in your 5th house at 2 degrees Taurus, which is only 1 degree from the 6th house. Now, the 6th house is known for acute illnesses. So we could read Venus and Mercury as part of your 6th house or your 5th house, since it's only 1 degree away. And either way, the 6th house is generally acute illnesses and the 12th house is chronic. You have your Sun, Venus, and Mercury opposite Neptune in your 12th house, and this shows an illness. Your Sun in Taurus is squaring Hygeia and Uranus, and Hygeia is health issues and Uranus is unexpected. The Sun is also quincunx to Jupiter, which is an uneasy aspect, and Jupiter can sometimes take unpredictable actions and sometimes makes rash decisions on the fly. So if we take an overall look at your chart, we can see the big picture of what happened when you were born. This is pretty amazing. Reading a medical astrology chart always blows me away every time. It's truly amazing to see the planets, to see the heavens as reflected on Earth. There are still more details to go over in your chart, but we can talk about it more. I just wanted to give you an in-depth understanding without being too overwhelming. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And I'd still like to go over your other ailments that you mentioned, having COVID in 2021, and then also you had a sharp pain in 2016. And thank you very much.